I'm Liz, welcome back to my kitchen. This afternoon I'm making some date scones. Now I know a lot of you will say, date scones? You know, can't everyone make date scones? Yeah, I know that they do make date scones, lots of people do, but sometimes they're not as good as they could be, are they? Dates are a bit chewy, they're a bit dry, a bit rubbery, etc, etc. So this afternoon I'm going to show you how to make the very, very best date scones that you've ever tasted. First, the flour. So I've got 3 cups of flour here, and I'm going to start sifting the ingredients, and I'm using plain flour, not the higher grade flour which has a slightly higher protein content. The proteins in the flour, when they're mixed with liquid, they form gluten, and gluten is that stretchy, sticky substance which gives us the structure, particularly that we need when we're making bread. We want the scones to be a bit more tender and more sort of soft cake-like crumbs, so we don't want so much gluten developed in the mix. Then 2 teaspoons of baking powder per cup of flour. I don't use self-rising flour because I like to control the amount of baking powder that I'm using. So it's 2 teaspoons per cup of flour for scones and muffins and those sorts of things. A tablespoon of sugar and half a teaspoon of salt. And I'm just going to put that through the sieve. So I've sifted the dry ingredients, and to be honest, when I'm using a food processor to rub in the butter, I actually don't even sift it because the food processor is going to break up any lumps and aerate it a bit anyway before I add the butter. But anyway, there we are. If you're not using a food processor, it is important to sift all the dry ingredients. And I'm going to use mine in a moment because I'm just so used to it and it's so quick. But I just wanted to show you, if you don't have a food processor, a really quick, easy way of dealing with the butter is to grate it when it's cold from the fridge. So just like that, like you're grating cheese, and then pop that into the flour mixture and just rub it a little bit with your fingers. It doesn't have to be very much because you actually want to have little lumps of butter, because they form a nice layer between the strands of gluten and make your scones nice and tender. So yeah, quick easy way with the grater. I'm going to pop mine in the food processor now and be back in a sec. Okay, so I've rubbed the butter into the flour and left little lumps so that we're going to have little layers of butter in between the strands of gluten and make our scones more tender. Now another little trick, a little tip to make your scones the best. I've soaked the dates in boiling water for about 20 minutes and then drained them well, so they're reasonably dry now, but if you like to look closely, you can see they're actually quite soft now. They're none of those hard, chewy dates that you get sometimes that are almost inedible. So I'm going to pop those into the bowl with the flour and butter mix and just toss them a bit with a knife. Make a well in the middle where I'm going to add the milk. And the next little secret, grated lemon rind. You could use orange rind as well. Either of them go really well with dates. And rather than just throwing this into the flour, which sometimes you end up with lumps of rind not well distributed, I'm going to add it to the milk, 1.5 cups of milk. And so the lemon rind just gets mixed into there, so then when I pour it in, it's going to be really well distributed. Alright, so well in the middle and pour the whole lot in. You may need a little bit more milk, so I've got some on hand just in case. It depends on all sorts of things. Sometimes the flour needs a bit more liquid, sometimes it's enough, just depends on the type of flour perhaps. This is looking pretty good. You don't want it to be too wet, but it's starting to come together. And yes, I think that's probably be about right. There's a little bit of dryness at the bottom, but that's fine. Right, so out onto the sheet, a little bit of flour. Let's pop it all onto there. So the next secret or tip with making scones is don't overhandle the mixture. It's when you start kneading it and handling it roughly that you end up with tough scones. So really, a couple of times folding and pressing down, and that's probably about enough. Now this one I'm actually going to make into a round and then place it on the tray and then cut it. So I'm not using a rolling pin, just my hands. Just something like that. Lightly floured oven tray. The oven's at 200, by the way. And then just lifting that on. Don't worry if it's a bit soft, because it's going to be reformed again anyway. And then use your knife just to mark the segments. Going to do them into about 8. And I've got one more little trick up my sleeve just to make your scones. Well, no, actually I've got 2 more, but I'm going to show you one before it goes into the oven. What I do is sprinkle the top of the scones with either some caster sugar, just so a bit of scone went flying over there, either caster sugar, or in this case I'm using demerara sugar. Just a little bit on top. It gives a lovely crunchy topping to the scones. And I use my hands for most things because you've got a lot more control over it. If I'm trying to use a spoon, you know, a big lumps kind of go in one place and you end up with it not very evenly done. So there we are, just a little sprinkling over the top. Demerara or raw sugar, something that's just a little bit more, brown sugar is not quite as good, something that's a bit more crunchy. Okay, so now into the oven, 200 for about 20-25 minutes. See you soon. Just in time for afternoon tea. They're just out of the oven, and as you can see, if you come a bit closer, the topping is nice and crisp and crunchy, makes it really good. Couple more little finishing touches. Dusting of icing sugar. It's one of my tricks I use a lot because everything just looks so much better with the dusting of icing sugar. There we are. And then using a lemon zester. If you haven't got a lemon zester, which really, I mean, they're so useful, you can just use your potato peeler to peel it in strip, and then a sharp knife. It's not quite as good, but still tastes good anyway. So I'm going to make a coffee now and taste test. See you later. Bye.